Hillary Clinton on the attack after going after 2020 Democrat contender Tulsi Gabbard, suggesting that she's being used by the Russians. Constitutional attorney, former White House counsel in both Reagan and Bush 41 administrations, David Rifkin joins me now with reaction. All right, David, thank you so much for being with us this evening. I want to kind of split this into two segments, and but first I want to talk about the lunacy of this and essentially what was said. So Hillary Clinton is on this podcast, and she starts talking about the fact that the Russians have their eye on someone currently in the Democratic primary, and they're grooming her to be a third-party candidate. She is a favorite of the Russians. She is a tool of the Russian government. And, you know, and it turns out that and they make it clear that she's talking about Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard comes out, and she issues her own tweet, and she says, thank you, Hillary, you, the queen of warmongers, the embodiment of corruption, and the personification of the rot that has sickened the Democratic Party for so long, have finally come out from behind the curtain. Now, aside from the fact that I couldn't agree with her more, I want to talk about the legalities of this. Number one, and I want to kind of take my viewers through this. We got a First Amendment. People can say, according to the First Amendment, they have free speech. Can they say whatever they want?
No, by limitations of the First Amendment, what you're talking about is defamation. So you cannot defame somebody, which is a false statement, depending on whether it's a public person or not. The standard is negligence or actual malice, and they've been teaching New York Times versus Sullivan. So, no, you clearly cannot say anything. And by the way, what Hillary Clinton said here clearly satisfies the actual malice standard, which really is kind of a not malice in a common sense of its word. It's basically reckless disregard for truth,
right,
or knowingly proffering falsehood. And Hillary Clinton knows that Tulsi is not being groomed by the Russians.
That Tulsi is not being, I didn't hear.
He's not being groomed by the Russians.
Right, okay. So when we talk about, obviously the First Amendment has limitations, and you quote New York Times against Sullivan, which basically says, you know, when you're a public official, expect people to say things about you that aren't true, and that you essentially have no rights and no recourse unless they say something that's not true, and they say it with malice aforethought. Is that correct?
That's correct. The standard for non-public persons is negligence. This standard is reckless disregard or knowing.
Okay. So in order for Tulsi Gabbard to sue, because she's a public official, she's running for president, she would have to prove that there was malice aforethought and that Hillary Clinton, that it's a lie. Now, Hillary Clinton hasn't offered any proof, and I suspect she's got none. Actually, I think she's flipped her lid. I mean, I think anybody that Hillary Clinton doesn't like, she says they're a Russian asset, which is where this whole thing started with Donald Trump, because she's the one who ended up hiring through money laundering through a law firm, Christopher Steele, a foreign agent who went to the Russians to get this ridiculous dossier. But I digress there. So would it be easy for Tulsi Gabbard to sue, especially since it appears that Hillary is accusing her of a crime?
It would be very easy. She's accusing her both of infamous behavior, but it's also a crime. If Tulsi is a Russian asset, then she's violating criminal law. It's 18 U.S.C. 951, the same provision which this Russian person, Butina, was convicted of, which is not registering if you're an agent of a foreign state. So, look, she's going to have an easy case. And I frankly hope she's going to sue, because it is depressing. It's defamation, but it's also a terrible distortion of any serious political discourse. So we're going to call people, and by the way, I don't agree with Tulsi's foreign policy, but she's not a Russian agent.
Okay.
That's ridiculous.
All right. All right, David, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And